Welcome to the November session of Public Safety, Rutherford County. We'll begin the meeting with the approval of minutes from our last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I've read the minutes and I make a motion that they be approved as submitted.
Second. Have a second. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. First on the agenda this evening is our pause report. Mr. Gregory. Good evening.
Good evening. Got the report for October in front of you. We had 627 animals that came to the shelter during that month. 82.4% adoption reclaim rate and a 6.3% euthanasia rate. More important than the adoption reclaim percentage rate is our live release rate. You can see for dogs we had 95.6% live release. Cats were 88.3%. And overall, when you include our wildlife in with that, we had 91.2% live release rate. 119 animals came into pause through our free spay neuter program, and 55 cats were released as part of the trap neuter release program. Second page, you can see that we had 1,997 calls received by our officers, 2,073 calls were completed, and they traveled almost 12,000 miles for the month. Fiscal year to date, our animals in were 2,469 with a live release rate overall of 90.6%. We've had almost 8,000 calls received, 8,031 calls completed, and traveled 47,485 miles. On the rabies exposure and bite report, we had 38 bites reported for the month. None of those were sent off for testing. And we had 11 other exposures. None of those were sent off for testing as well. So we hold true to no positive animals for rabies since February.
Any questions for Mr. Gregory on his report?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Irwin. All those in favor of approving the report? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I believe we have a budget amendment.
Yes, sir. I've spoken to Sonia at HR and the mayor regarding this, and deputy mayor as well. We're having a major issue keeping kennel attendants at Paul's. Those are our part-time folks that come in and do our feeding and our cleaning.
So we're having a problem with release rate there.
Our live release rate there is much higher than we want it to be. To give you an example, Sonia provided me some numbers from fiscal year 16 to 17. We had 12 that left during that time frame. 17 to 18, we had 18 that had left. And thus far this fiscal year, when Sonia gave me the numbers, we had 6. But since that time, we've had 4 leave, and that's been within the last 3 weeks. We've had 10 thus far in 5 months this year that have left. Back when we did the budget for this year, we had increased the pay for that position an additional $1 an hour. At that time, Sonia and I did talk about, should we start looking at hiring some full-time folks for this position? And we thought that by increasing the pay, we might be able to buy us another year with that, but we're not able to. What this budget amendment does is take some money out of our current part-time line item, and that we have some monies that are available for the vet position that has been vacant as far as benefits. And we're asking to couple that with some money from unassigned fund balance to hire 3 full-time folks so that I can guarantee that I have 2 folks there cleaning at least every day. Right now, what we're having to do is all of our in-house staff are on mandatory overtime, having to come in and clean, so we're burning those folks out. I also thought about the time that we're spending as far as interviewing and training folks, only to have them leave. A lot of times we interview folks, they go downtown to do the drug test, they don't show back up. Or they find some ways to try to finagle around that drug test. And then we've also had to pull some animal control officers off the road to be able to help do some cleaning at times as well. So we're kind of shooting ourselves either way we turn there. So we're asking to go ahead and kind of bite the bullet on that. As bad as I hate to ask for money from unassigned fund balance, I think this may be the second time in my 8 years we've had to do that, so I don't do that lightly.
These positions.
Is that 54,000 actual money above counting your part-time money there?
extra or what you were budgeted?
No, it would be 32,185 from unassigned fund balance. Yes, sir. The other 22,000 was money that we would save within part-time for 6 months to move those folks over to full-time.
I thought you said you had some debt money in there.
That made the line 205, the employee independent insurance, that made that line not have to have quite as much money because that money's already sitting in that line for insurance now being unused. So it lightened the load a little bit there.
These positions ever been full-time?
No, sir.
Never been?
Not that I've ever known of, no, sir.
Sonia, this may also be for you. What's the indicator that would say that going to full-time would make it more desirable and turnover would be less?
Part of the reason is the people who do apply do need benefits. So that's one of the reasons. We have tried posting not only on our NeoGov site, which is worldwide, not only statewide, but worldwide. We have posted it in the classified ads with the Daily News Journal, WGNS, MTSU. We've tried to get college students that come over, but based on the time of day that they're having to come in to clean to be ready for, the public to come in, we have tried every possible thing that we can think of to make it better, use their suggestions. So the benefits and those individuals that are coming in, we've also changed the job description from requiring a high school diploma to not requiring a high school diploma, because we feel like that there is a population out there that may not have a diploma but needs a job, needs to support their family. So we're hoping by making these tweaks, because they are cleaning cages and feeding the animals, we just feel like that maybe with the changes we've made, we might be able to get him some sustainability in that.
Any particular light at the end of the tunnel for some of these guys? Can you see any progression for them? Someone that comes in and does a bang-up job over the next 4 or 5 years, could you see a progression for them, or could they see a light at the end of the tunnel?
I can give you 2 real-life examples. We had a young lady that started as a volunteer when I first started. She went to a kennel attendant as soon as she turned 18. Within 6 or 8 months, she was an animal control officer, and within about 3 years, she was a supervisor. Now she went a different route. She had children, understandably, but we have a supervisor that's a shelter supervisor now that started out the exact same way.
The hours that you're talking about are, I'm assuming, probably second or third shift, what we would...
Early first.
We
First
started
shift.
at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
6 o'clock, that ain't too bad, is it, Bill?
And he did just have, if I remember correctly, you did just have a person that was part-time that went into the animal care specialist or animal care tech. So he did just have a part-time person who, and that person had volunteered for you too, didn't she?
I don't think she volunteered. She started as a kennel attendant, then she went to a part-time animal care specialist, and then within the last 2 weeks, she went to a full-time animal care technician. So we like seeing that progression there. It seems to work best when we have that.
I mean, obviously, we don't want there to be turnover in any positions, but people do have circumstances, that leads them to leave, but it's gotten beyond the normal rate of turnover for a department. I mean, because how many employees total? Forgot.
Total around 28 to 30.
Okay, so you think you got 12 people leaving in a year, and you've only got 38 employees? I mean, you're almost running 50% turnover.
But Mike's concern was that he's having to pull other people off of other jobs and come in, and he's afraid he's going to get burnout on many of those because they're having to work overtime or do things that they were not supposed to be doing. But did Commissioner McAdoo's granddaughter reach out to you, Mike?
Has not yet. I haven't seen
Okay.
the application, no, sir.
He called last week and was interested in his granddaughter coming to work out there part-time.
The whole deal about turnover, the cost of turnover is astronomical. And you could more than afford more than 3 full-time positions if you could eliminate the turnover. And just the cost of what it takes to train and the overtime that you run when you do a lot of training is from my experience, just unacceptable. So the turnover has to be reduced, and that's the reason I was asking about has this ever been full-time in the past?
It was never introduced.
No.
Is that $10 an hour for the part-time?
We moved it up to, was it
Yeah,
11?
11. We started out at 8, and within the last 3 years, we've gone from 8 to 11.
And then what about a full-time? What's the base on that?
The base on that is 23,429 to 25,143, which comes out to 1126 to 1208 is the range.
So the hourly rate's not going to be as much, but it's going to be eligible for health insurance,
Benefits.
retirement, sick days, annual days, those things that other full-time employees enjoy.
How much overtime do you have out of the full-timers?
How much over, as far as cost-wise? 32,000 is what we had budgeted for this year. I'm already over 50% for the year.
Okay, then you're probably gonna go over now, right?
Yes, sir. We're gonna have to finagle money within the budget to try to cover that for the rest of the year. And the full-time staff only went part-time within the last, or the full-time staff only went to overtime. The in-house staff went to overtime about 3 weeks ago. So we're gonna start seeing that percentage creep higher every pay period.
And you don't have the option, just like jail, workhouse and so on, doesn't have the option. Dogs and cats have to be fed and taken care of. And so on. So it's not an option of, well, we can just let it go for a day or two. It must be, and I assume all your dogs that come into there are well-trained and behaved and everything.
They never-
These people, they don't have to put up with anything like that.
No, they never make a mess. There's never any
Right.
poop scooping, and
So,
Nobody ever gets
yeah,
bit.
I'm sure, you know, we appreciate sometimes the job that some of these people do and are willing to do. So if we can make this a more palatable job by offering benefits and some opportunity to better themselves, I can see, you know, when you can go and work in a much better environment for $10, $11, $12 an hour at a retail store or somewhere like that, where it's nice and warm and no messes and everything, why people would not want to the job, or why they would leave the job as soon as they found something else. So I'll
Do
be
you
voting for that.
tell them up front they have to take a drug test to get in?
they know they're going downtown for a test, yes, sir. And it's actually in the job
It's on
description,
the
too.
application. It's part of the application process, and in the job description, it also talks about it.
You'd be surprised the folks that come that get downtown and don't stop us at that point.
Do they fill out an exit interview of any type when they leave, asking why they left?
It's not mandatory. We request it, we reach out to them verbally, we send a letter, and we're about to start a process with our NeoGov system to, it has their email, so as soon as we terminate them in the NeoGov, it will generate a letter to the email that they provided to us to get them to answer. We're trying everything we can. That's across the county. It's not just for his department, to try to, you know, if we've got some things that we need to approve on, we want to know.
On the diploma requirements, you're just referring that toward part-timers, correct?
I'm sorry, say it again?
That they don't have to have a diploma, basically, is that aimed toward part-timers?
It's going to be for this full-time position, or if we have somebody in it part-time, only for the kennel attendants. So when they get into the animal care specialist and some of the, you know, a vet tech, they're going to have to be able to read and write and those type things because they're dealing with medications and those type things.
Well, I'm in agreement with Mr. Phillips and Gurley and everybody. I think we need to, I feel like we need to beef them up a little bit, make them better. Not that you're not doing the best job you can now, because I'm going to tell you right now, I've had them come out a few times and pick up some animals that are dead or not dead, distemper, this and that. It kind of takes a unique person to do that, especially to deal with people when you're trying to take their dogs and stuff. But I just feel like the more professional that you can make them, you know, and fit into that, then you start building, you know, camaraderie, pride, having something, you know, have something to grow for, like Commissioner Phillips was talking about.
Well, and the desire would be too, if somebody comes in without a high school diploma, there are opportunities for us to help them to obtain their GED, so that should an opportunity become available, then we could assist them with that as well. So I mean, it's not that we're just wanting to give somebody who doesn't have an opportunity somewhere, because you really can't I had a guy come into my office, and it was pretty heartbreaking, and I mean, he was in tears, just begging me to give him a job for something, but he didn't have a high school diploma. And he says, I can't even get a job taking the garbage out at Hardee's because I don't have a high school diploma. And so when Michael and I started discussing this, we started like, what are the skill sets that this person will need? What will they have to do? How much reading and writing would they have to do? They really don't interact with the public because they're back with the animals. And so we started looking at that, and not to say that somebody who doesn't have a high school diploma can't interact with the public. That would not be a fair assessment. But just to say, to give somebody an opportunity that wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise. And I just feel like this is a great thing that we could do. We don't have a lot of jobs in the county that doesn't require, that we could even, there's very few that I can even think of that would not require it, because most of our jobs do require the ability to read. And so it's a start. It's something, we're trying something different, so.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, I move that we approve Fordham's budget for their
Second.
consideration.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for this budget request. Madam Secretary, I'll let you call the roll.
Commissioner Irvin?
Here.
Commissioner Gannon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Emergency Management, Mr. TK. Before you begin, I want to say something, if I could. Just 2 weeks ago or so, out in my district in the western part of this county, we had a tornado that covered 5.6 miles across that area, starting over there towards Threet Road in the forest corner of our county, going from there all the way to Highway 231. I think it totally destroyed about 5 houses, or 5 properties, damaged 28. One person lost their life, some were injured. But what I want to say, the reason I'm saying that now is we still have several of those agency directors in here that participated in working that situation. And I just want to say thank you. And I think this committee wants to say that too, for what y'all did. Y'all were there very quick, very rapidly. And the people out there appreciate it. I went back through yesterday afternoon to a lot of the places that were affected. And I had nothing but good response from the people out there talking about how the county was involved. Now, some of them had different things to say about their insurance companies and things like that. But I asked them, I said, well, how did our county perform? And they said, we are just overly proud of our county. And that goes also for our road superintendent, who come out there and picked up brush on the side of the road. He was even out there, our superintendent was even out there with a chainsaw, cutting up trees one Saturday. And then solid waste, to put extra dumpsters out there for the citizens to put things in. So I just wanted to pass that on to you, that the people in Midland and Christiana were very proud of you and what you did. And I had a television crew come the other night, they come the other night, Thanksgiving, and they wanted me to do a report on, say, how are things coming out here. And they were looking for a bad part of the story. And I said, well, you've never been out here in this area. These people right here are resilient. And I said, they started taking care of their problem immediately, and they didn't ask for a lot of help. And I said, they have done an outstanding job, plus our county was out there with them. So I just want to tell you I appreciate you, and I know you're going to cover some of that in your report, and I've seen it, so I'll let you go ahead, sir.
Thanks. Yeah, you have my report in front of you. I'll go through some of the other items we participate, but obviously the biggest thing that we participated in and did our best to help out on was the tornado. We attended a few meetings. Emergency Management Association of Tennessee met this past month. That's once a year thing that I attend every year. It's a state level conference. We've also had a few meetings to set up some active shooter training with primarily the Sheriff's Office, but also involve some other agencies. That'll be coming forward here in the next few months. And I'm continuing to send my staff to training. There's a new thing within FEMA, which is called Basic and Advanced Academy, that requires quite a bit of effort on part of the person. I've got one person right now, she's attending the Advanced Academy. It requires 4 trips to Maryland for about a week at a time. She has to write a paper, all this other good stuff. Yeah, it's pretty in-depth, so I've been sending her to that, and that's where she was for part of the time last month. We also attended a really great program, after-action review on the Las Vegas Metro Police mass shooting. That was very, very interesting, and that was held in Franklin. Also, MTSU Nursing School invites me over once a year, and I give them a quick talk about what emergency management is and how what they're about to embark on is involved in it as best I can. But a few of our upcoming meetings, tomorrow we have a PIO group meeting, which comes up about once a quarter. All the PIOs, public information officers within the county, are invited over, and they work out their own techniques and procedures and share knowledge of what they did right and what they did wrong as of the last events that happened. We also have some hazmat training with SORT tomorrow. We're teaching some incident command courses. There's one listed on here that's with Murfreesboro Fire for the 29th and also December the 5th, and we're going to follow that up with the next level incident command course. We'll do that December 17th and 20th also with Murfreesboro Fire. And we're also doing the Children Disasters class being conducted by State Health on the 6th through 7th of December. The incidents that we have, you've got the packet of them. We've had quite a few. I'll try to hit the first two, and I'm not going to bore y'all. But the tornado touchdown, like I said, 5.6 miles. Based on all our, we go back out afterwards and we interview everybody who got hit. And 42 homes had some type of damage. Of that, 6 were destroyed by our definition. You already know there was one fatality, and that night there were a couple of people transported for injuries. But that was about the extent of our damage. Roads and everything were not damaged, other than, like you said before, there was limited stuff across them, but we had no public facilities damaged. There's really not that, other than the roads, there's really no public facilities out there. Power was restored fairly quickly, although if you're waiting for the power to be restored, it's never fast enough. But all those things tend to come together. And like you had said, in the middle of the night when all this came together, I think all of us were tracking the storms, and I think all of us had our devices out thinking, yeah, in about 15 minutes this is going to be over. And then Christiana got hit. As a matter of fact, when I was watching it, you would assume that the worst of it was probably going to hit Smyrna up until this happened. So talking to the people out there, you hear the story about we heard the train coming. That's not what happened. And this is why people should always be careful and always be vigilant. Every one of the people I spoke to said it got quiet and then we had damage because of the way this thing crowded. It didn't hit the ground and just plow through. If it did that, we'd still be out there messing with it. Okay? It hopscotched. It kind of came down and went up. Went out a couple of days later with the folks from the National Weather Service. They looked at all damage, and it was a very strong EF2 with 135-mile-an-hour winds. 1 more mile an hour had been a 3. It was, at that point, the meteorologist told me that was the strongest tornado that they've seen in Middle Tennessee since 2014. So we're very lucky that it didn't get on the ground, stay on the ground. It could have been a lot worse than it was. But like I said, when something like that happens, the sheriff's office, the EMS, fire, everybody came together, set up a command post, which we had to move at first because you don't know what you don't know. It was set up at a store out there, and then we moved it to behind the elementary school, which was really, we're also fortunate another way, is that was election day, which means the schools were out. So early morning, you weren't dealing with any of that at all, and we were able to use their property for the command post. But overall, everything worked out really well. And in the grand scheme of things, it could have been a much worse situation. But and it required a lot of hard work by everyone out there, a lot of long hours. But right now, the only thing is one of the reasons why we do the damage assessments is to see if it meets the thresholds for the state, and the state has to have their own thresholds to go to FEMA for assistance, financial assistance. And it's not going to meet that at all. One of the things you look at is, are the structures that were damaged insured? And by and large, I'm not saying all of them were, but they were. Quite a few of them, vast majority was. So we're not going to see any state or federal aid for this situation because it just doesn't meet the thresholds. If you want to know what the threshold is, our threshold is always based on our population as of our last census. So the formula, it's a financial formula based on, I think our 2010 census was 260, maybe 265 people, 265,000 people, excuse me. And our threshold is just under $1 million. I'm going to assume in a couple of years our threshold is going to go up by a whole lot. So it's kind of a moving target. So you have some pictures in there. If y'all want me to come back later, I didn't want to do it for this meeting and put y'all in a position where but we do have video and everything. If y'all want to see something more detailed later, we can do that and put that together for you. But I didn't want to do that this meeting without talking to y'all first.
And I see you have posted some of those videos online.
Yes, we've got some drone footage, also OIT through their GIS. They posted some as well. And it really helps afterwards, as long as you don't get too detailed, to show people what areas got what type of damage. It answers questions up front, especially for those friends and relatives that don't live around there. They can actually go online and see what had happened. So,
TK, is there a threshold with FEMA?
Yes.
That it has to hit a certain amount of damage before you can submit for reimbursement for the man hours involved?
yes, sir. That's also part of what I'm talking about. All of your costs are computed with that.
Okay.
That's not just the damage. It also computes man hours and everything like that. So.
Is there a threshold you got to go over before you get reimbursed?
Yes, sir. And then they don't cover that first. In this case, it's almost $1 million for us. They wouldn't cover that first $1 million anyway.
I was thinking it was about $1 million.
Yeah, and not only do we have to meet the threshold, but the state's got to meet theirs.
Right.
So, and I was talking to my team district coordinator today, and the state is not. The state's not going to meet theirs either.
Thank you.
I stopped at the Wilson House. You may remember it. It was one of the first houses hit. It was a brick ranch built in the 60s.
Yes, sir.
And it looked like somebody had just stepped on it and crushed it. And I got there early that morning, and Miss Wilson was standing in the front yard. And when I got there and I walked to her, I said, "I'm sorry, Miss Wilson." She said, "Oh no, I'm blessed." And she's pointed towards the wreckage all in there, and there's set a recliner.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "I was sitting in that recliner, and after it's over, I just walked out."
And you got to see the front wall of that house. That wall caved in, and it hit everything but that recliner. So
Simply
yes, you were
amazing.
blessed.
And one of the farmers, a long way from there, her ceiling fan was in his field, and the electrical wiring to that ceiling fan is still attached to it, and it runs. All the wiring is there all the way back to the breaker box, and the breaker is still hooked to the wire. So just pull that fan out with the wiring all the way to the breaker box and carried it out across almost a mile away. But she did well. Any other questions anyone have?
Just a quick follow-up. The job that you and other emergency responders and departments, I know was really good, and we all appreciate that. But do you have any type of a war room that you put together after it's all said and done and said, this is what happened, this is what went well, and this is what we could have done different, maybe?
We can set up an after action, yeah. We typically, and honestly, because of the way this one went down, we haven't scheduled one yet. We normally, after a large scale event, invite all the other agencies in and try to make sure we can do it better next time. But I will tell you this, is especially when you're talking about folks like the sheriff's office, and fire and EMS. Those, I mean, they were heroes that night. I mean, they were dead on it. I mean, you roll out in the middle of the night, you don't even know what you're looking at. I mean, these guys were awesome. And the other thing, especially, and I know it seems like a small thing to some people, but being able to secure that area and control it, which is the sheriff's office did, that's huge, because you got to be able to, you know. Because one of the things people don't know, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder because of the story, but the night this happened, what, a little bit after midnight? By the time the sun came up, those lowlifes that like to rip people off with repairs, they were there before the sun came up. This scene is not even 6 hours old, and these knuckleheads, I'm sorry I'm being recorded, but that's how I feel about them. They were there trying to get in and talk to people like Ms. Wilson and them and help them get repaired. They were there to steal from them.
I didn't mean to put you on your high.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry, but one of the things that impressed me about your deputies...
He's totally right.
Yeah, they
I
were
also
there.
didn't mean to indicate that the response wasn't outstanding.
No, sir, I understand.
But my question was, do we?
Yes, sir.
Do we?
Yes, sir, we just have not
do we meet
scheduled it yet. Yeah.
And see if we can even improve
Yes, sir.
the response. Thank you.
But, you have the other instance, the other one that's of any size is that oil release that happened on 120 South Cannon Street. It was right next to the river in Murfreesboro, and we had the EPA out there on that one, and there's been a lot of digging. There's tens of thousands of pounds of soil that's been removed from that site. I believe the Premier Protective Services are almost done with it at this point, but the problem with that one is not only did they have a spill that was deliberately spilled because they had a disgruntled employee, former employee, but it has also been used as a fuel point since like the 1950s. So there's already a little bit in the ground, you know, from years past. So that's been a struggle. The others, if you have any comments on, questions on those, I'll be glad to ask them, but I didn't want to eat up the entire time that you have with these other directors.
And we had a fire in the trash compactor. Right?
Yes, sir.
So we found out incineration doesn't work for
No, sir.
solid waste
Yes,
in the
sir.
compactor. So that's,
What he's talking about in the recovery phase, like I said, solid waste set up additional dumpsters for people to separate out refuse from the tornado. And one of them was set up at Rockville, and as soon as I saw that fire, that was the first thing I thought is like, okay, what happened? Because Christiana's getting one thing after another. By the way, a couple of days after this, we thought we had a train fire out there as well, but well, we did have a train fire, but it went out quickly. You know, the whole thing's happening in threes. We thought that was happening at that point, so.
It's all because
do we have a motion to approve the report?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Bishop, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Juvenile detention, I believe we got Captain Basket.
Yeah. Good evening. You have in front of you the report for October 2018. On the first page of that report is the activity sheet. There's not a lot to report on that sheet. We do have some counties that owe some money. Those counties are really good to work with, so I'm not worried about them paying late or anything. On the STD stats, I'm happy to report that the percentage is down for the positivity rates. It's down about 3% versus September where it was 16%. On the facility program, I did want to let everybody know about an awesome program that we had. We had a college day with a lot of the detainees in the facility. So we had the Tennessee, the College of Applied Technology come out, Motlow came out, and the Tennessee National Guard came out, and we set up tables in one of our large multi-purpose rooms, and all the kids got to go around and talk to those representatives about college and whatever things they had in store for them in their future. So they were excited about it. A lot of the kids are ready to go to technology school. We've got a couple ready to sign up for the National Guard, so that was good. And that's it for the report for October, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Any questions on the report? Anyone? If not, we'll take a motion on the report.
Move to approve.
Have a second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Your second.
Mr. Erpman. And I believe we've got a contract from Haywood County.
Yes, sir, we do. And Haywood County, I don't know if you all are familiar where that's at. It's near Memphis. I think it's 2 counties off of Shelby County. So they've reached out to us, and they're needing some beds for some of their juveniles.
That's a long way.
It is a long way. We have several counties out in West Tennessee that we contract with. And when I ask, why are you wanting to come all the way to Middle Tennessee and house those juveniles, their response has been that a lot of the facilities in West Tennessee have been occupied by the Department of Children's Services. So a lot of the kids in state's custody are contracting and having those beds filled with those counties. And with this county contract, I just want to say that we'll always have room for Rutherford County juveniles. We won't ever turn a Rutherford County juvenile away. So we take that into account when we accept those kids.
We do Gibson County.
Yes, sir. And
Lauder-
Tipton County, Lauderdale
Tipton
County.
Lauderdale County. I knew
Yes,
they
sir.
were there.
And then Clay County, which is north of Cookville, I talked to them the beginning of last week, and they're also wanting to do a contract with us.
Salina.
What's the department's recommendation?
We would like to do this contract.
Move to approve the contract.
Got a motion to approve? Second. I think it's simple. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And I believe we've got, a memorandum of understanding?
Yes, sir, we do. This is the second relocation site. I believe Director Lynn Duke presented the first relocation site in the October meeting, which was the Correctional Work Center. This is actually for the Agriculture Extension Office, and so this is our second relocation site.
Any questions anyone has? If not, I'm open for a motion.
Motion to approve the report.
Commissioner P, second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Appreciate
good
it,
night.
Captain. Okay, I believe. Correctional Work Center.
Evening. First thing in the packet is our monthly board meeting for November. One of the things we discussed was the expenditure report, and we were right on track with our expenditures. Other than that, we talked a little bit about the TCAP and the mechatronics program that they've got out at Oakland, and the mayor suggested that we go out there and take a look at that, and we did. We brought back some information that'll be coming up pretty soon from that too. We worked with part of that program in our Second Chance class, and some of the same folks that were doing that are working with this one, so something that we're really looking forward to and excited about getting involved in. On to the monthly reports. You'll see the work release program still going great. We talked to a couple other companies this past month, and maybe picking up those for some of our workers too. On to the yearly activity report. You see that our population is steadily rising. I think it has been about 175 to 180 over the past month. I think we dipped back down to 165 over the weekend. And then our monthly worker report. Projected savings of $109,928. Putting inmates to work on a daily basis. This past month's been pretty busy, mostly with our integration of our new security system, which can be a little stressful when you're in the business of housing bodies and you're changing over the mechanics of what keeps those bodies in there. So been a little stressful where that's concerned, but it is complete now, and a few little hiccups along the way. After that, we're right on track.
Any questions anyone has? I want to say you had some of the roadside group come out to Rockville of that fire. They had to dump that compactor away from the center to spread it out to ever get the fire out. So it was left there Thanksgiving Day. I got all the calls on that one. Everybody thought there had been a protest and everybody dumped their garbage out there in front of the convenience center. So they come out the day after Thanksgiving and your guys come out there and cleaned it all up, did a great job. Appreciated that. So they're involved in other things.
They are. I mean, and you know, we put a lot of trust into these guys to go out there and work throughout the day. I mean, you'd be shocked to know some of the things that on a daily basis that they run into. Today we found a handgun in a ditch in Laverne. You know, if we didn't have the mentality and the discipline that we do when it comes to dealing with these guys, you know, that things like that could turn really bad. But they notified the supervisor, and we got Laverne Police Department out there and got it taken care of. I mean, that's little things like that are pretty common that, you know, the general public don't know a whole lot about. But you know, we work with these guys and instill good values and discipline in them, and you know, those type of things pay off whenever they're out in the public. So
Appreciate the work you do. Have a motion to approve the report?
That's a move.
Second.
Mr. Reno, second here. All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
and like juvenile, we will not turn any Rutherford Countyans away either. Thank you.
Sheriff.
I'm jealous.
I was gonna push this chair up. I didn't know what for.
You can trust these guys.
I noticed when he said he found a gun, the sheriff reached to make sure his was still there. So.
Well, mine, I'll give you a couple of our fellows to see if the outcome would have been the same.
Don't even go that direction.
No.
You want to go with your budget first?
Can I do
amendments?
both together, since they're in the,
Oh, sheriff's right.
they're both amendments?
Both amendments.
Do both amendments together? That's okay.
Okay, one is an insurance recovery check we have for a wrecked vehicle. It's $21,187. We'd like to put that back into our 718 new vehicle account. And we're finally getting our, on the second amendment, our justice grant from 2017. I think we talked about the MOU with Murfreesboro in August. So we finally have that money split between us and city, $29,910. I'd like to put that in the communication equipment to buy the radios, the earplugs, and the carriers.
This is all money being placed back in.
That's a grant.
Yeah, it's a grant.
We split it with the city.
Okay.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve. Second. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Okay. Present your report.
Well, I usually let y'all look through the budget line items. If y'all have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Gentlemen, have you seen anything that's you have question about?
Do you have any concerns going into the second half of the fiscal year?
Jello.
Jello overtime.
Obviously, there is a shortage of personnel, about like what you've heard of. That's a job
that we have difficulty in keeping people. As far as talking about exit interview, we would love to be able to do that, except they come in the lobby, drop their uniform on the floor and walk out. So that's kind of what we've been, they don't want the job. And we are looking at a method, and we're talking with MTSU, who has been successful with Tennessee Highway Patrol, TBI in Murfreesboro on looking at two things. One is proper interview to try to identify the people on the front end that will stay with us, but then also in identifying things that we can ask and look for with these people when they come in that we can interview, and then some changes that we're going to make is start taking people through the detention complex, putting them back there with our people, letting them see exactly what it is they're getting involved in, so it's no big surprise. I mean, you can talk and tell, as you well know, all day long. That doesn't describe it until you get back there and see it. So we're trying to change the things that we're doing to try to do something about the retention. We've been down as many as 12 to 15. We've got to narrow back down to, I think, 4 right now, but it's still training, so it's a churn back there constantly. So we're trying to get one of the things that we run into, obviously when you're short of staff, the concern that I've got is we have inmates assaulting our officers because you don't have enough in there with them. We've had 29 officers assaulted this year, and that's a great concern to me. So we've got to do something different. That's the things that we're looking at right now to be able to retain people to get up to a full staff back there. So anyway, we're looking at different things that we can do and trying to move forward at a very rapid pace to get there so we can stem that tide right now. But I guess we've got, what, 2, 3 that's come in that just dropped uniform.
Then one to the trustee.
Yeah, and
That was
one
outside.
came in,
Here,
gave it to
tell
trustee
him
on
I
the
quit.
outside, so here, take my uniform. So,
Wouldn't even come in.
yeah,
It was,
so they don't even want to come in and face us. So anyway, we recognize we've got to do something different, and we're looking at what that difference is going to be to try to stem this thing.
Have you had a hire, when you're trying to refill these positions, because psychologicals come in, has there been an increase on people losing people through psychologicals?
Yes, sir.
Higher than normal?
Yes, well,
you got a new person.
we got a new, the one we were using retired.
Yeah.
Needed.
Say this.
No, it's just.
We've never had anybody that failed under that one. The first 4 that we sent, 2 failed. We questioned that and then come to find out that they're doing it right. And when you dig deeper into these people's background that didn't pass it, so we could satisfy ourselves it was being done right, it was kind of like, oh, gee whiz.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't even question them anymore.
Yeah, so we
heard
don't
that
question.
If they fail, they fail. We'll
If
move
they
on.
fail, they fail, and then, but those discussions have been held with them, and come to find out what they're looking, I mean, they're right on.
Yeah, spot on, yeah.
And so it's kind of scary that maybe some of us go back through, we may not
I wouldn't.
like it either. So.
The only other 2 is probably 335 in the jail and 336. And as far as 336, about 54,000 of that's been the jail locks, the door locks that we're having to go back and redo. So that I'll keep my eye on it. Repairs and stuff is just some equipment that's been there a while, and it's just,
And
we repair it as we can.
The jail locks, I'll explain that, is at one time there was plates on the jail cells. For whatever reason, the decision was made in the past, when they worked on the plates or on the locks, they take the plate off. What the plate does is helps you to keep people from jimmying the lock where they can get out.
all the plates were taken off and thrown away. And so we have had to go back now and manufacture, because we can't make them. We tried to make them, so we had to get them manufactured, and this cost us about $5,000 a floor to go back and put plates back on these doors. That's kind of one of those great mysteries in life, is you ask the question why, and it just is. The other thing that we have instituted that on anybody that Jimmy's attempts to Jimmy or whatever the lock on getting out of their cell door, we're now charging with escape. We have found that on things that we have run into where we start charging them and we're successful on conviction, then all of a sudden the word gets around pretty quick that we're not fooling with them anymore, and that lessens considerably. In fact, we've had about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago that Jimmy, we charged them and we haven't had one since. So we're hopeful that this is going to stem that. But the plate, plus the fact, we're on 4 now. I think we've put them on everything except 4. And we've got 100 more, and then we'll be through with the plates going back on the doors. So that was kind of one of those things that we came in, didn't know really to look for, and then when you start asking them, why is all this happening, well, the plates are not there anymore. Well, why aren't the plates there? Well, they took them off, so here we go. So that's what we're doing. We should be finished by the end, well, say mid next month, we should be completely finished with that project and have all the plates back on the doors.
Item number 357 and 401 deals with vet services and animal food supplies. It looks like you're almost out of money.
We divide that between narcotics funds and general funds. So now we've switched over because they're used for a 50-50 purpose. So we split how that's paid. So we won't be using any more out of the general fund. We'll take the rest of that to the 122 fund.
So you're okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How's the kitchen holding up?
Equipment's starting to go
Equipment's starting to go
bad.
bad.
The kitchen looks good. It's just the
Yeah.
equipment's going bad on it. That's a lot of your appliance repairs. And I want to tell you, you want to make some money? Repair kitchen equipment.
If you're looking for business to go into.
Oh, yeah. That's why we're trying to do a lot ourselves, but we still the parts.
You gotta buy the good stuff to last.
Well, you do the good stuff to last. The problem is we try to do in-house maintenance on anything where we don't have a warranty on it. And of course, the big problem you get into is the part. And those parts are expensive for these big ovens and things of that nature. But so far, we're hanging in there with it. The contract's going good as far as, last year we contracted out on food service, and that's still holding right about $1.06.
Went up a little.
We went up a little bit, depending on sack lunches and what, because they charge us more for that, and certain medical meals and so forth. But we were around $1.39 a meal. We're holding right now. We were $1.03, $1.06 is kind of the range that we're into right now. So we're saving on a per meal basis still.
Anything else, anyone? If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Appreciate you,
Thank you.
Corey, very
Yes,
much
sir.
for being with us. OSHA.
Good evening. You have the report in front of you there for the month of October. You'll see that in October we had 25 injuries requiring medical attention. You'll see the breakout there. That brings the total for the year, calendar year, to 224. Of that 224, 154 are OSHA recordable. 67 of them were restricted days, 35 are lost time days, and 53 are considered all other. Next page of your report, you'll see that for those injuries, the incurred dollars at this time is $54,768. And when you compare the graph on the next page for the reports, we're up to, compared to the 2 previous years at 163, and last year at 187, and this year total at 224 at this time. So you can see we still run a slight increase there as far as claims right now for this year. Next page of the report, you'll see the on-job injury, the incurred dollars. This year we're at $520,000 compared to $468 for last year and $412 in 2016. Just a reminder, it takes about a year for those incurred dollars to settle down. They're an estimate when the injury comes in, and depending on whether the treatment for the injury is actually not quite as severe as they thought, then we'll recover some of the dollars. But if it's worse, then obviously it will incur additional loss.
If you could re-explain to me and to us, we're self-insured.
Yes.
But we have an administrator who administrates the dollars, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Explain how that works.
Okay. All claims come in to my office, and I'm the only one in the county that actually does the on-the-job injury claims. I get all the claims in, administer them as to which ones are actually qualify as work-related injuries. Then they're filed with CCMSI. CCMSI takes the claims, and then they, in the administration, all the medical bills come in. They review all the medical bills. They go through bill review. Once that comes out, then CCMSI, what they do is they authorize payment for those medical bills. And then they'll in turn see that those bills a check gets cut for those bills and payment made out of a checking account that they operate for the county. Okay, and then that's overseen by the county finance. In addition to that, if injury is referred for surgery or something like that, then it's got to go through pre-cert. They make sure that it gets sent off to pre-cert, gets evaluated as to whether surgery is appropriate or not. If it gets referred to physical therapy, they'll set up the physical therapy appointments and follow the physical therapy and make sure that those bills are paid, but it's also make sure that the individual is progressing. They have their knowledge that's much more in depth than my knowledge is as far as medical treatment and things like that. So then they'll go through that, and then of course if any legal issues or anything like that come up, they also handle that as the administrator, handle all the administration of legal issues, setting up the reserves and all that too. So.
Thank you.
And then of course, like I was saying, they have to estimate on every individual claim to give us an idea and make sure that we have the funds there in the account to pay the bills as they come in.
Right.
And that's what you're doing here on that graph. After you see that, the next page of your report, you'll notice that the Board of Education had 13 claims, and you'll see that the total incurred dollars for them was $14,454, and you kind of see the breakdown of what those types of injury claims were. The county general had the other 12 claims, and you'll see that the incurred dollars there is for $40,314 estimate for the month for the county general. And then the next page report of those 12, you'll notice that we've broken down into the physical location between the sheriff, ambulance service, PAWS, and solid waste in the county. Last month, I was asked if I could present a graph or present information comparing injuries to employees that we've had. And that's what I've tried to do on the last page of your report here. And just to kind of set it up for you, on the left-hand side, you'll see the number of claims, and that's the actual number of claims. And then I also have included the incurred dollars. Now, the incurred dollars are in thousands. So in that first claim or column there for 2009, we had 243 actual injuries, and we spent $461,000. Now, I'm not sure you can draw anything out of the dollars simply because the cost of health care goes up and things like that to the number of employees. But if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see that we identify the number of employees, and that's where that goes up, and you'll see that the green line actually covers the number of employees we have, while the blue bars across the bottom actually identifies the number of claims. So as you look across that, one of the things that jumped out at me, if you look at 2009, we had 243 injuries. That is the highest in the last 9 years. We had that with 5,778 employees. In 2010, we had 211 claims, and we had 5,789 employees. And then in 2011, 239, and we had 5,853 employees. And then jumping all the way across to 2017, last year, when we have the last full numbers for, we had a total of 217 claims, but we had 6,722 employees. And these are numbers that we were reporting to OSHA at the end of the calendar year. We have to report the number of employees we had and the total number of hours. So those are the employees that we're reporting to OSHA. So as you look across that, from 2009 to 2017, we increased almost 1,000 employees. But the most claims we had was back in 2009 at 243, and that claims have actually decreased if you look at 2017, 217 claims. So you can see that they're actually growing apart there. So we've been able to hold the claims down as the employees in the county have come in.
I think it's due to training, better training.
I think training, awareness, making sure that people understand that, we've got to stay on top of it every single day. Now, this next year, just to let you know, county school system is opening 2 new schools next year. And with that, we know that, between the schools, we're probably going to have an additional 300 employee or more coming into the county next year, just from the Board of Education, 300 more. So we'll be over 7,000, expect to be over 7,000, maybe 7,100 county employees by the end of next year.
A graph like this is helpful for someone like me to take a look at, simply because although the trend looks like it's up, the reverse is actually happening. It's an indicator that the severity of the accidents are not as bad as they were, but the pure number of them have gone way down, even though it doesn't look like it. 243 versus 217 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add the incident rate in there, it brings it way down. That's the reason that this right here is
You add an
very
extra
helpful.
1,000 people and say in 9 years, you added 1,000 people and nobody got hurt for that 1,000. That's miraculous.
This, to me, is kind of a nutshell eye view of what the performance is. It's a report card.
And we lose sight of the number of claims from year to year to year to year. It takes something like this presentation, this graph, to bring it back into focus for us.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
Not a problem, sir. That's all I have at this time, unless you have some other questions.
Any questions, anyone?
What year did we change the way we look at our workers' comp?
Believe it or not, 2009. That's why I made this a 9-year.
That's why I brought this up.
Yep.
Because, you were asking, how we stay low. Part of that, I think, is the fact that we changed the way we operate here.
Of course, under workers' comp is a no-fault system, and on-the-job injury program, the county is responsible for the program. And so we have to be responsible, we have to be active in the involvement of the program, and we just don't, it's not a turnkey, just pass people through. And I think that's part of the awareness that you were speaking of, being aware, staying on top of it.
If you go back and grab the 10 years before that, if you had that information, I don't know what you do, I think you'd see a difference. You wouldn't see the gain of employees and the amount of injuries like we're now. I think the trend would be opposite of what we're
years?
Probably, but then, of course, the county has grown so much. I don't know about the number of employees we had back then with, with that either, so. Honestly, I think the county has become much, much more professional in the way that we've handled the on-the-job injury program, just since we took it over this way, because we had to in order to
I
do
think
it.
that too, that's why I brought it up.
Mhm.
Y'all done a good job. I know on training every year when our school employees would start going out waxing, we always had people slipping, getting
Oh,
injured.
that is one of the biggest things we concentrate. Every year and in fact, with all the new schools we have not had an increase in injuries from stripping like we had years ago. That's been way down too.
Okay, any more questions? Do I have a motion? Motion, Commissioner Earl. Have a second?
Second.
Sereno? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Ambulance service.
Well done.
Pretty darn good.
We made 2,824 calls last month. Our average response time was 7 minutes. If you notice it, it's compared to 2017, 2016, that response time is coming down, even with more calls, much more congestion on the roads. I think that's due to these 12-hour trucks that we're using. We've been used to working 24-hour shifts, and we still do, but we've been adding 12-hour trucks to cover peak times. And those trucks don't have a base, they just wander around. You've seen them sitting down by the old Kentucky Fried Chicken place and various other
I
places.
saw one in Michael's, I think, the other day during the Friday.
They'll position themselves in prime areas at different times. And so the response time's gone away. And one thing that does is it immediately takes 2 minutes off your response time, because it takes the people 2 minutes to get from the inside the station to the ambulance and then get going. And these guys are already going. So we think that's what it is.
Do you have any plans to add additional units like that? Because from what I'm hearing, they are keeping this response time, which is so critical, down. I'd like to see one that primarily hangs out in the north end, because they're still being whammed.
We're working on that right now.
You're working on that. Well, that's good to hear, because I think, adding a couple of more trucks in the coming year might very well kind of get us down. I'd like to see us down in that, over 6 minute response. 6 minutes, I think, is a goal that we ought to be striving for.
That's always been our
to keep
goal.
people alive.
Exactly.
And with a lot of the other things that are going on regarding EMS that's going on, along with fire and so on, I think if we had a couple of more trucks strategically located in growth areas, and you can look at your stats and see where you really need them, but I think it's we can pay those trucks, pay the personnel on those trucks for a pretty good little bit of time for what we can build a station for.
And that's one area that indicates to us that we need it is in the north end, and we're in the process of doing that. We're probably going to be able to do that probably before the end of the year, without having to get any more money.
Thank you.
We had 42 coroner's calls last month. 9 of those went to Nashville for autopsy. We billed $1,599,734. Collected $678,065. It puts us at $2,754,000 year to date, with a projection of $8,262,477.
That's actually pretty good for this time of the year. It'll pick up, it'll be better than that, but that's a pretty good projection. We had insurance write-offs of $572,111 and collection agency write-offs of almost $300,000. The chart at the bottom of the page, the highlighted lines are our reserved units. The other ones are active units. We drove a total of 49,126 miles, so essentially we're wearing an ambulance out about every 3 or 4 months, if you want to look at it that way. Total cost per mile is 47 cents per mile. Next page are activities and services and training and our different various teams throughout the ambulance service. And as you can see, all of that's been pretty busy. The bottom of the page is the SORT team, but if you look at the next page, that gives you an indication. The SORT is involved in a bunch of different kind of things, and that page will tell you exactly what kind of calls that they made. I think the total there is 92 or 93 calls that they lost. The last page of the report is the amount of sick hours that we've been using. We've got an abnormally large number of people that are out on either FMLA or on the job injury. I think we have 2 on the job injuries that are out. And all of these, sometimes I complain about the FMLA, but these are all serious medical issues. We just got overwhelmed at once. We have about 9 people out right now. Things as serious as a subarachnoid hemorrhages and pressure on the spine, that's probably going to result in some type of permanent disability and those things. So that's up quite a bit. And the rest of the report is just various letters of thank you notes that we've received from various people.
Any additional questions, gentlemen?
Motion to approve the report.
Second, Mr. P. Motion to approve. Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Appreciate your report. Fire and rescue.
Excuse me, I'm find the sinus infection last week. And to answer your question, Commissioner Phillips, on the thing the other night, tornado, the actual reports are important. Although everything did go very smoothly, we can always improve on everything we do. For the month of October, we had 5 structure fires. We ran 218 medical calls, 21 motor vehicle accidents with injury, 21 without injury, and had one entrapment. Had a total call volume for the month for 431 calls. Year-to-date calls from January 1st to the end of October, we had 48 structure fires. We ran 2,289 medical calls. We had 232 motor vehicle accidents with injury, 248 without injury, had 18 extrications, for a total call volume of 4,304. And the significance of that number right there is we report to the state on all reports, so I'm able to see what everybody in the state of Tennessee is doing. And for the county to have actually 2 stations, we run more calls in the city of Laverne than the city of Smyrna, which I think is pretty significant. The total call volume with the volunteer fire departments included. You see their numbers are out there in their respective columns. We had total countywide had 83 structure fires, 118 brush fires, 1,022 MVAs. 34 MVAs had extrications. We had a total call volume countywide of 5,491 calls. Next page is what we turn into codes, damaged structures. Although we had several structure fires, we only had one home in District 45, which is Eagle Air, that was damaged. The fire investigation report had two that was investigated, an outbuilding in Christiana Hoover's Gap Road, and then one on McKnight Cedar Road. And it was intentionally set.
Larry, did y'all determine the cause of that dumpster fire in Rockwell?
They're still looking at that, investigating.
Okay.
I don't know unless something, I mean, a lot of times people throw ashes and everything else in there, and it just sits there and smolders, and over time, you know, it'll catch if everybody's gone. Matter of fact, that night that call come out is across county from where I live, and the call come out is our station on fire. So I was I was a little excited there for a minute, but when they said dumpster fire, I was very relieved. The next page I want to bring to your attention is actually an article that was off the WGNS I printed off, where our fire investigators, along with our sheriff's office, did get an indictment on a lady who had set a fire. This house had actually been set on fire 4 different times, and I suspect by 4 different people. But we did get a conviction. We did get a indictment on this person, which is a credit to our fire investigators and working with sheriff's office. Another thing that's part of our fire prevention and fire investigation is we got the grants for the hearing impaired smoke detectors. Our guy that's heading that up, Josh Sanders, has gotten with all the Rutherford County school systems. We're working with Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne, working together, and we're putting a hearing smoke alarm in every home that every child that's in a Rutherford County school has a hearing defect is getting one of those smoke alarms. We're getting a lot of requests too for older people that need that. But we're trying to put one in every home where there is somebody that has a hearing defect or they're deaf.
That program that we've been involved in the last few years as it relates to changing out old alarms, smoke detectors, are we still doing that?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I'm going to invite you and the mayor, all y'all, the mayor, Saturday morning at Murfreesboro Fire Department at 8 o'clock. We're working with Murfreesboro Fire Department in Hendersonville and the county. We're going to canvass some high-risk areas this Saturday morning, and the state fire marshal is going to be there, and they're going to do a press release or press conference on that. And then Murfreesboro is going to go out in their area. We're going to go out in one of our high-risk areas and try to install as many fire smoke alarms as we can. And then we got another one on the 8th, the December 8th that we're going to do. So it's something we're very active in. These batteries have a 10-year life, so we're trying, and a smoke alarm is only effective for 10 years, and they need to be changed out. So we're trying to put as many smoke alarms in as many residences as we possibly can.
For my benefit and the benefit of anyone watching on TV, what's the number to call?
You can call 615-867-4626 and speak to our assistant there about your needs for a smoke alarm. Or there's a on the county webpage, there's a place you can go there and click on and sign up, and it sends us an email. Okay. Either way, it will be effective.
Very good. Thank you.
There's something else I want to bring up. I'm just slipped my mind. But anyway, we're trying to create an all hazards fire department, do everything we can as far as prevention, and of course, like you mentioned, we work with the planning department and look at all the plots and plans reviews. But we're really making a solid effort in trying to cut down on fire deaths. State of Tennessee used to be number 2 in the state for fire deaths, and Tennessee used to be number 2 state nationwide, but I think we've dropped that considerably. And a lot of that's through the grants that the State Fire Marshal has gotten. And they've passed out thousands and thousands of smoke alarms. And that completes my report, and I've got a budget amendment and another subject I want to run back for consideration.
Let's take the report first. Do I hear a motion to approve the report?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Phillips, second. Commissioner Gordon. All those in favor of the motion to approve the report, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Do you have an amendment?
Yes, sir. We sold one of the old fire trucks for $25,000, and that check is cleared. The one we sold to County. And I need to move some money, $5,000 out of that, into evaluation testing, which is our training budget, and then $10,000 into the uniforms, which will help cover some of the uniforms for our 15 we just hired, and then $10,000 in line 790, which is for other equipment, which is will help replace fire equipment.
Okay. Any questions? He got his check and already got it taken care of. So move to approve. Move to approve. Commissioner Phillips. Commissioner Gammon. Call the roll, Madam Secretary.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Pease?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Over the last 3 or 4 years that we've had paid firefighters, we've grown a lot of training from going from fire suppression, vehicle rescue, to providing ALS care, medical care on the trucks with paramedics and AMTs. Another area we've grown is with our fire prevention, is having 5 or 6 fire inspectors going out in the county inspecting different occupancies and buildings. We've also had 2 guys that's gone and got state certified and nationally certified fire investigators through the International Association of Arson Investigators. They've been assisting SO, or should I say Randy Gross, who has investigated most of the fires in this county for the last 40 years. There was just the State Fire Marshal's Office just last year. They investigate counties that don't have municipalities that have investigators. I think they had 98 arson fires this year, 120 last year. Our guys, as Commissioner Gammon is well aware, for several years we have these investigators that work with the Sheriff's Office as reserve deputies to be able to carry out and do some of these investigations. Because of post-certification issues, that's come up, the sheriff has withdrawn the reserve deputy status for post-certification, has issues with that on certain things, and I'm not sure what details are. But I've spoken to Mayor Catron, I've spoken to Sheriff Fitzhugh, I've met with Senator Shane Reeves and State Representative Brian Terry, and to see if this is possible. And each time I met with the senator and state representative, I made it clear that we'd have to get approval through the county commission to be able to do this. But Randy Gross is going to be retiring here at the end of December. When that happens, nobody else in the detective division is certified or even interested in investigating fires. We are required by state law to investigate and have a cause and origin for every structure fire that we have in this county. I've got 2 guys who are highly trained. They've gone through extensive fire investigation training, from investigating a fire, determining the cause and origin, to building a case, and even going through the process of building a case and testifying in a mock court to be able to do this. The current law is 68-102-127. What this law does, and if you look at the second page, it's on your, hopefully it's on your iPads. The second page, you look at under B, it says municipal fire investigators have been authorized by the chief of municipal fire department or the director of fire service to conduct investigations to relative the cause and origin of fires and or arson investigations, shall have the police powers and shall have the right to make arrests when necessary to preserve the laws of this state or their respective municipalities relative to cases of arson or suspected arson. What I've spoken to the mayor about, and I've spoken to Shane Reeves, or Senator Shane Reeves and Representative Brian Terry, is amending this law. And under that, it would look like proposed change where it says police powers of commissioners and deputies and municipal and county fire investigators. I've got an email from, and of course it would be municipal and salary county government fire investigators who have been authorized by the fire chief, by the chief of municipal or county-wide fire department. But talking to Representative Terry today in email, and Mayor Catcher made the same suggestion that in order to, instead of being Rutherford County Pacific, they probably want to do it by population. And what I'm asking you is to authorize us to move forward to full commission to give us authority to pursue this. What that would do would give our fire investigators police powers to write and obtain search warrants, obtain subpoenas, obtain arrest warrants for arson and crimes, make arrests on fire and arson related crimes, and present cases to the grand jury. And the only thing that we'd be doing as far as police powers would be strictly to arson related cases.
They have the investigators in all the other jurisdictions.
Brentwood has got fire investigators that have these police powers. Germantown has it, several other municipalities, but they're authorized through the fire chief to do that. But because we're not a municipality, I don't have the authority to do that.
Could be the first county, I believe, in order to do that. But by changing the law, I received a letter, certified letter from the sheriff today, Sheriff Fitzhugh, in support. I signed my letter also in support going to the legislative delegation, so we'll be prepared in January to draft a piece of legislation based on what the chief has just described to you, change the law based on the population of Rutherford County.
You're asking us to approve and forward on to the full commission for their consideration?
Yes, to approve us to pursue this amendment. Of course, we wouldn't want to do this, ask the Honorable Senator Reeves or Honorable Representative Brian Terry to do this without your permission or your blessing.
Yeah, I think this is probably needed. Virgil knows I worked as a reserve from the late 70s on when we had to, some of the laws have changed over the years. Back in the 70s, 60s and 70s and even into the early 80s, there was statutory authority under the emergency management or civil defense laws to have an auxiliary police unit. And we had an auxiliary police unit. When I first was commissioned in '79, I was commissioned both through the SO and also through Murfreesboro Police Department. I've still got those commission cards. You'd have to go back and remember what post was consisting of back then. The requirements and training requirements and so on were not too stringent, or there were a lot of departments that didn't have a lot. But also working at TEMA, we had authority at one point in time, and then the law changed. That general law allowing them to have law enforcement authority changed, where it was done away with. And so then TEMA went back and did something very similar to this, where their people have authority to carry a weapon in the line of their course of their duties. And of course, when I came back here working for EMA from 11 through 15, I was commissioned with the SO. I trained with the SO, 40 hours of in-service, and we carried a firearm because we went out. At that time, the fire department had not started yet, or was just getting started. You were still over in our office. And we went out and did all of the illegal burn investigations and so on. There are several of those places where we went that are tagged in the CAD system to do not respond to unless you have a law enforcement officer, because there are people out there who don't like being stopped from burning. And they become belligerent when you try to stop them from burning. Yeah, and so I think this is needed for, it's very limited in scope. We're not duplicating anything that the sheriff's department does, and if the sheriff's department wants to also have arson investigators, there's nothing to keep them from doing that, but they've got to be certified also. It's an area that's specific, so I'm all for it. I think in this day and time, well, it's always been true, when you have people who are not obeying the law, and arson is a very serious crime. It not only endangers people's lives, it increases our insurance rates. It is detrimental to and can cost people their lives. So when someone decides to commit an act of arson, they're not doing it so without potential consequences. So I'll let my fellow commissioner, who also has there's 2 or 3 of us that have experience along that line, and thoughts on it.
Well, I just know back in the day, I started in '77, and back in those days, to be honest, for a while, the sheriff didn't even have to be post-certified with the deputies. And back then also, all you had to do is attend academy and not graduate. Those things changed. And what's happened in the last number of years is you've got 95 counties, and the post commission has had to really wind down. The same thing happened with the wheel tax officer. You couldn't commission me, he had to work under the colors of law under the sheriff, and that's what brought that about a number of years ago also. And that's kind of the same thing with gosh, I think Randy started in '78 or '79, somewhere in there. And he's been really the only arson investigator we've ever had, and he's done a just unbelievable job on state level. But
he's very well
if you're-
respected in that field,
I mean,
too.
you're losing him. You know, he's got to be replaced in that sense.
And you correct me if I'm wrong, but they've offered that to other detectives, and nobody's just not interested in coming up through that field. And so I think it's something needed. As long as we do this, it'll help keep our insurance rates down, especially if they know we're going to investigate it and prosecute it. Those guys will carry firearms, but only, and I made it clear, only if they're on an active investigation. And we've created policies that are identical to the sheriff's office as far as use of lethal force, policies and procedures on how we do all this stuff. And I made it clear that if this passes, and the mayor's aware of this, that the only time they'll carry is while they're out on the scene. And a lot of times, once we respond to a fire, and the officer in charge has a suspicion of arson, or something sends up a red flag, we automatically call one of our investigators in. And a practice the sheriff's office had for years, when they get up on the scene, they have somebody sign off that they can come back after that. They have to leave to investigate that fire. So what we do is, while we're on the scene, we have possession of that property. And investigator comes in and starts his investigation. Well, if we can go ahead and get our stuff back on the truck, and the truck will leave, he's going to be there by himself. And so really the handgun is just there for their protection. And under Mayor Burgess, I bought 3 Glocks that identical to what the sheriff's office were using, with 9mm, when identical to what they're doing. These guys will continue to go through the 40-hour class and qualify every year with this weapon. So, I mean, we've been doing this under the auspices of the sheriff's office, but now that's kind of been taken out of his hands, and we want to continue to provide this service to the county, but we want to make sure we're legal in doing that.
Well, there's a massive amount of training, and I know your people are capable of that. It's a special position, a specialized position. And they'll train with some of the best in the state to get better and better, plus whatever equipment is needed, on top of that, because it's a massive investigation on arson. It just is.
And we pretty much got this equipment and tools we need. So it's not going to be increasing our budget. There's not going to be increasing our overtime, because we've allotted for all that in our budget. So I mean, it's financially, it's not going to really affect us.
I'll just go ahead.
Is the sheriff's department not going to hire another arson investigator? That's a question I'd like to have answered.
He has no intentions. And I think you can speak this, they've got enough cases to keep them busy without having to wander off in that field. And of course, I've talked to Sheriff Fitcher extensively about this before I sit down here.
Well, I'm not against you having this ability to do this, but it concerns me that the sheriff's department's not going to have an arson investigator. you know, because last time I looked at the statistics, Rutherford County was one of the worst counties for arson in the state of Tennessee. I don't know if that's still the trend, but, you know, the more investigators we got, I think it would help us. But I am concerned if I'm hearing that the
Well,
sheriff is not gonna have an arson.
He's not gonna have one now, whether he hires one, that'd be a question to ask him. I wouldn't want to
I think
speak, I wouldn't want to speak for him.
At the point when it went per individual in question, I've worked with many, many hours, and, you know, he's getting ready to retire, and we didn't have a full-time fire department. We didn't have ability to do this. We didn't have other trained people at the time, so the sheriff's department was the only place for that to take place. I think that's time to change.
That's asking the nail on the head right there.
Yeah.
And plus, they can take the position of Randy and utilize them other places that they're hurting in and kind of make up with that. But I'm sure they wouldn't do it if they didn't think they didn't have qualified, certified people to be able to take it over from there.
And of course, I don't want to speak for them, but the detectives and sheriff's office are pretty excited about us doing this. They're glad that somebody is trained and qualified. Of course, they'll still be there for our guys to lean on, need assistance or help, and they've actually been real good to work with. You know, I think Randy was down there for a while, so I mean, we've pretty much been doing it. Randy's been pretty occupied with other cases, but they've put a lot of time and a lot of training in this, and it's one of those things that you just gotta like doing because you're actually digging through all that burnt, charred, and it's a nasty job. So I think that's probably why a lot of people aren't jumping in line to get in for it.
And I'll be honest, we were fortunate to hold on to Randy as long as we did.
Yeah.
Because I've seen many people that went into that from law enforcement because the city of Murfreesboro did the same thing at one time. And a lot of those people transferred over to private insurance and, you know, did very well. So you kind of run into that with, you know, the wreck reconstruction, the accident reconstruction with insurance, same thing.
Now, these guys that you're proposing to be fired full, I assume.
Not full time.
Well, that's my question.
They're
They're gonna be a firefighter first.
They're firefighters first, and this is secondary. And every captain, lieutenant, everybody on the department, because we're a small department, has got 2 and 3 jobs they do. And this is just a part of what they'll be involved in.
It's just like with the sheriff's department, all the SWAT team members are not full-time SWAT team members.
And I can't speak for the sheriff at all. I mean, but I'm sure if you needed some legs, you know, he would throw you some detectives over there to help with the interviews or whatever you needed.
And they've been good about helping us with that. But these guys, one was a lieutenant on C shift, the other one's a driver on B shift, and matter of fact, one of them come from the city of Franklin as a fire investigator because he thought he seen his words were a lot of potential for growth in Rutherford County, and he liked what we were doing, and so he left Franklin Fire Department to come work for us. And this young man has got he's a paramedic, he's a diver, he's got a degree in business and a master's degree in emergency management. So I feel very thankful to have people like that applying to our department.
And if the case is beyond, anytime you have a body or anything, anyone's killed in it, it's automatically going to involve the sheriff's department.
Well, the state fire marshal, he rolls in there.
Right, and so, you know, I'm very, very.
And in my 30-year career in the county, we've had several people perish in fire, so that's.
I'll make a motion that we approve, the motion is to forward this on to the full commission for approval.
Commissioner Marino makes the second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Carries.
And once again, I continue to covet your support and appreciate it very much.
Chief Farley, before you go.
Yes, sir.
At a recent county commission meeting, the additional firefighters in the grant that was applied for, there was some discussion and some dissension, and not everyone was in favor of it. You probably already do this, and maybe speaking out of ignorance, but if you could, when you put your budget together this next year, I'd like to see what you are foreseeing over the next 4 or 5 years as far as your budgetary needs and what you'll be looking at. Maybe the mayor's already got that plan for you, I don't know, but I'd like to see that. Maybe we can soften that blow a little bit if we know what's coming.
Well, you know, there's a lot of commercial businesses going up in the county, which is going to increase sales tax, which helps fund us. But you know, we keep hearing we're going to 600,000 people. Like I say, we run almost 6,000 calls this year. In 2010, when I was a named county fire chief, we ran 1,300 calls nationwide. Of course, a lot of those are medical calls, but there's a lot of times, and Mr. Gurley spoke to a while ago, especially on the north side, where we're there on the scene 10 to 15 minutes before the ambulance gets on the scene. And there are times when the ambulance service is so busy where we have been in a situation where on one place out of Oakland High School, we had a heart patient that had the nearest ambulance coming from Laverne. And that's no fault of the ambulance department, it's just because there's so many calls, so much going on in this county. There's just a lot of calls, and there's a lot of times our guys never they never stop rolling the wheels. They'll leave one call and go to another. And a lot of times they go for 24 hours without sleeping, as do the ambulance people. So there's just times when it gets crazy like that and everybody's running wide open. And like TK spoke a while ago, but the good thing about it, everybody's friends, everybody's neighbors. We work good with the Sheriff's Department and EMS. So, I mean, and the EMS and fire guys, I mean, our guys up in the back of the ambulance doing everything they're doing, and it's like one department way we work together. And they love our firefighters, and we love our paramedics. So it's just a good working relationship that we work together to provide public safety.
Just looking at your needs and your wants for the next few years anyway, would help us in making some decisions, even if there's opportunities for alternative to property taxes. So putting that together, your vision together, your wants together, your needs together would help at least me, and I think maybe the whole commission, make some decisions as to how we're going to finance some things.
Well, I think the biggest, we've been very fortunate in our budget to buy apparatus and equipment and stuff. And like I say, one of the deals I made with Mayor Burgess was we sell these fire trucks, we take that money and reinvest it in buying equipment and stuff to wear out. And for every department that's in the county, and of course we investigate every fire in the county, whether it's in our response area or Kittrell's, Lascassas, whoever's. But our biggest expense I see going forward is just more personnel.
Commissioner Phillips. Chief Farley's working on C-tests to help us identify where the growth areas are going to be over the next 5 to 10 years, and they're trying to locate give us some kind of ideas, right?
Well, what they're looking at is the call volume, and also where the most fires are created, and what they're working on right now is try to come up with a several strategic locations to put this new fire station.
Another facet of that needs to be looked at is that we are starting to build subdivisions in the county that are more urban in nature. That is where the houses are, they're PUDs with very close house spacing, 10 feet between the houses, or 15 or so. So unlike a typical lot a house that sits on a half acre and you've got several feet, quite a bit of distance, and unless you have a strong wind blowing or something, the fire can be easily contained to that one structure. Some of these new developments that are going to go in, and they are going to be in the county because the sewer is not there, so they're going to be served by the county, are going to be, like I said, much more urban in nature, whereas if you have a fire in one structure, containing that and keeping it down to no more than the adjoining structures is going to be imperative. we're gonna change in that. So that's something they need to look at and work with planning and see where those things are.
Well, we bought,
Commissioner Phillips has a good hand on that.
we purchased 4 tankers. I don't foresee us ever having to purchase any more because Rutherford County is growing so fast that CD is actually laying the water pipe down in front of the highway. They just got through laying a 16-inch line down 840, which connects Central Valley Road, the water plant, to Jefferson Pike. That's getting very commercial out there. They just built a McCormick Trucking, which handles all the U.S. mail carriers, the 18-wheelers, and transports mail. So there's a lot of commercial construction going on in the county that will hopefully help offset those costs. But CD's, they're rapidly laying bigger and larger water lines down every major growth area. And as they do that, they are installing fire hydrants every 1,000 feet.
Done it down 99.
Yeah, so I mean, 96, 99, 840, Jefferson Pike, everywhere. So, I mean, they're doing a great job keeping up with the growth. But I'll keep that in mind.
My whole point is that we spend over 75% of our budget on schools, but there's going to be tremendous need for public safety over the next 20 years as our population explodes. And I have no doubt but that it will. And the projections are accurate. So your needs and the needs of our sheriff and the needs of our road superintendent, all of those are important to people like me as we try to look not just at the next year, but at what's coming, and then try to better plan for some long-term plan to pay for this stuff. And that's the point, is that if we have a better idea of what you need over an extended period of time, we have a better opportunity to plan for that and not just kind of spring it on us.
Well, under the state law, if I'm stating this right, there's only 2 ways to really finance a county fire department, and that's through sales tax or fire tax, which is a property tax, in other words. So, I mean, as I continue to work with the Planning Commission and see more and more commercial structures coming here, it gives me hope and foresight that that's going to help offset those costs as we move forward.
But the big picture is putting all this stuff together, not just your department, but the other departments are going to be affected by growth, and how are we going to put together a budget, not just for next year, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, to meet those demands. And they're more than just wants. They're actually demands that we probably will need to meet. So there's some real opportunities, I think, that we have, because the growth has really exploded over the last 8 years.
It's going to stretch fire, EMS, sheriff's office, all public safety.
It really is, and your participation in that planning process is valuable, along with the road superintendent and others. So I appreciate the effort that you and your department has put in. But the only reason that I brought that up is because there was some discussion at that full county commission meeting about not wanting to do that, and I can just see more of those requests coming, and not just.
And what a lot of people fail to realize that don't live in the county is that they drive in the county. They drive on the interstates, and that's where we can protect and cover. So although they have the luxury of having paid fire protection, they're in a lot of areas, a lot of times just traveling, where if something happens, we're all that they got coming to them.
Let me get on my high horse just for a minute. Every planning commission that I've attended that have had public hearings, there is almost an assurance that someone will get up and object, because in their words, I moved out here 15 years ago or 12 years ago because of what? I wanted to live in the country. And my response to those people have been, there is no such thing as country in Rutherford County anymore. And these places that are being asked to be rezoned have to go someplace. You have to meet those needs. And the perfect example is in 1980, there were 55 dairy farms in Rutherford County. You know how many there is now? Not a one. And so there is no
Oh, that's
country.
Well,
Big ones?
Well, they thought what you call big.
I grew up in the 70s and graduated in 78, so, and played football. And a lot of those guys played football, hauled hay, and a lot of these fields now are full of subdivisions.
But what I'm saying is that the county is just becoming
Massive.
populated, and maybe even some would think overpopulated, but we have to be
Proactive.
cognizant. We really have to be cognizant of what's coming and look out a lot farther, not just the next year. And that's the reason that I made that request, that you kind of look and see maybe what does the next 4 or 5 years look for us, and it give us a better opportunity to long-term plan for how we're going to finance these
Well,
things.
a couple of years ago, I wrote Commissioner,
Gurley.
we always sat down here.
Alan?
Oh, no, David,
I'm just going blank. Anyway, one of the commissioners asked us to create a 5-year plan, and we did. But of course, that's all outdated yet, so I guess we need to restart and start that over again.
What,
And
yeah, Chief, what I wanted to say, and what you're talking about there, you consider, just for example, Saturday evening, we had a fire out on Rocky Glade Road, which consisted of Lucky Lad Farm. And for that fire right there, we had units coming all the way from Fosterville, Iggleville, the county units, and then they were coming from Williamson County. So you had several different units that was coming just to that farm, and it ended up being one structure. But you take that area out there right now, there is what I call a dead spot, because there's not a volunteer fire department within that area where Lucky Lad is located. So, and we've got other spots like that in the county too, where we're sitting in this situation. So, what we're talking about right here is, and what you're talking about, Commissioner Phillips, these things are out there, they do exist, and somewhere down the line, we got to look at what we got to do to take care of those situations.
well, I can sit here for hours and tell you time and time again where these paid fire stations have responded to a house that had a kitchen fire that contained the kitchen, the stove, that would have before these apartments went in full time, would have been on the ground. Because, I mean, it's just that fast response, and especially in the daytime when volunteers are not available. But just being there within minutes to stop that fire before it leaves that one room, it makes a big difference in insurance costs. And I've said, we see it probably hundreds of them.
Right.
Makes a big difference. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Mayor, it's you.
I was just going to make a suggestion in that conversation. I reached out to Superintendent Spurlock and told him, Commissioner Phillips, that as the school board starts looking for schools, we need more transparency and communication with the planning commission and planning department, because where they locate schools is where we need to be locating fire departments and ambulance departments. And I may suggest that we even look, and I did to him, that because we buy extra property, when we buy those, we fund all that school property to locate that school on, there's always enough room to put an extra fire department and an ambulance department as the county continues to grow. So
Plus you have the infrastructure, the sewer system, and all that, and easily it cuts down costs.
It's mind-boggling to me. Maybe I'm too old to be thinking like that, but it's just mind-boggling to me. And I've not seen a community vision. I've not seen what Rutherford County wants to be. And somehow, some way, we need to start that process. What is Rutherford County going to look like 20 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now? And how do we not only plan for it,
budget for it,
but how do we pay for it?
Good conversation.
Yes.
Probation and recovery. Mr. King.
I'll be that long. It'll be very short. That'll be a good thing. Unfortunately, on the recovery courts, our software system was down today. Been working with OIT on that. By the time I got to the meeting today, it was still down, so I apologize for not having the stats for drug court, DUI, veterans, and mental health, but I will have those stats for you at our next meeting. So I do apologize for that. We're going into Into probation, I can tell you that our cost for the month of October of 2018 was $122,611.50. Our total year-to-date expenditures have been $440,475.72. Revenues for the month of October coming in were $58,665.66 with a difference of $63,945.84. In the month of October, we did not have any voluntary payment agreements entered for probation. For the fiscal year of 19, we have placed almost 50,000 onto voluntary payment agreements at probation for the probationers. Those that have failed during that same period of time to enter into any sort of payment agreement is $80,068.75. The year-to-date total for those that have refused to enter into any sort of payment agreement with the clerk for just this calendar year alone is $223,779.59. So we are working with the courts and trying to find ways that we can keep people from leaving court and not going to the clerk's office and not signing up for these payment agreements. That's our biggest thing that we're working on. Our numbers are down as far as probationers. From the lawsuit that was part of that, we've kind of cut that almost in half from the volume. So the recidivism is kind of curving down in a lot of ways. So I believe that we are making a difference in that aspect. So when I took over, we were at 4,200 probationers. Last numbers, I believe we were down to 2,600, 2,400 total. So it's a pretty sizable cut. The last request I have after speaking with Mayor Ketron on this, the county just hired its first reentry coordinator to kind of work alongside the sheriff's office as well as the correctional work center to help try to curb that recidivism rate even lower for those inmates to keep them from coming back into doing so. There was a grant that has just been released from the Department of Corrections. They're going to award up to 4 grants statewide, a total of $250,000 per year for 3 years, $750 total, no matching costs, no anything to help fund ideas and projects to reduce recidivism in the jails as well as probation revocations. So I would like to have approval, if possible, to seek to apply for this grant to see if we can try to come up with an idea and a way to fund this to try to attack that and to help our cost and our other agencies lower.
That sounds like a good idea. If we can procure that money and come up with some good methods to reduce it further, cut it in half so you're darn sure headed in the right direction. So
We were trying to, and I've made this before. My goal is to work myself out of a job. I know that I doubt that I'll ever get there, but that is my goal. I'm not here to benefit off anybody. We would want to try to get it in a place where we can actually put programs in that kind of run themselves. And then, we're not sitting here saying, well, we need to build another jail. Here's another couple $100 million, and we need to house it. We're trying to look at ways that we can divert that and keep them from going there and get to the problem.
well, having said that, I'll make a motion to approve your applying to the grant, for the grant, excuse me.
Second.
Commissioner Irwin, second. Another second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. And I think we've got a report to approve, right?
Yes.
You did. Well, that's my probation report. Unfortunately, I didn't have a direct report, so I'm sorry.
Part of it.
Yes, sir.
Let me just say, I remember when Director King came in and it was a drug court that seemed kind of tiny at the time. I don't know that you'll ever work yourself out of a job because about every year something else is given to you. So you might need to rethink, work yourself out of a job because I'm just amazed at the responsibility that you and your departments have undertaken and the job that you've done to help the county, especially with the probationary situation. You're providing an invaluable service and you're an outstanding public servant, and I commend you for the job that you're doing. Great job.
Sir, I appreciate that.
Any other comments?
motion to approve the report.
Motion made to approve his report.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The only other thing I have is, I don't think we talked about it, but I would love to have everyone's support to come out to Saturday's game, MTSU, for the conference championship. Please come out. I will buy you a hot dog. Everybody here, I'll buy you a hot dog and Coke, whatever drink you'd like. But I would love to generate as much support as we can.
I just got my tickets. They just come across here. Good deal. Hope to see you out there.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
our next meeting happens to be on Christmas Eve. Now, if you want to meet here, I won't be here. But what I was thinking, I think we've done this before, situations like this, we'll just say we'll not have a meeting in December unless some of the departments seems like they are needing some type of budgets passed or whatever. And if it's just one or two departments, they'll contact us and we can do as we've done before and send them on to budget, let budget take care of those, and then we will discuss them at the next meeting, if that's satisfactory with you. Okay. Anything else needs to come before this committee? Mayor?
Official Christmas tree lighting, a week on Friday, on the 7th, is that correct? At 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock, right out here, Santa Claus will arrive by a fire truck, I think, and they'll set up.
Band, hopefully.
Got a band coming and a choir group from one of the high schools coming, so.
The ballet.
Yeah,
A whole bunch of stuff going on that night.
yeah, so come on down to the courthouse.
6 o'clock, right?
6 o'clock, on the 7th.
Actually, one of the contestants from The Voice, if any of you watch The Voice, she is a teacher at one of the schools, if I remember, or is it the police department? She works for the Murfreesboro Police Department, I believe it is, and she's actually going to be our main attraction.
Besides Santa Claus.
Besides Santa Claus, yes. I mean, of course, you can't beat Santa Claus, but our main attraction for musicians, we'll put it that way.
I hear a motion we adjourn.
Let's go adjourn.
Second.